All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nick Doran. I'm a web developer at the Museum of Modern Art. But in the past and on the side, I work on and continue to work on some mapping projects and some GIS projects. So less maps, more design, kind of a controversial title for a GIS conference. So what do I mean by that?
It's working. The what? Okay.
Okay. Technical difficulties. Alright. So this is an example of a GIS application that I think a lot of us are familiar with. Like I used to do some Esri ArcGIS work as well. And there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, this is exactly what I want to see the watershed planning and development and city GIS services to be using. Lots of different layers and analysis. But if I'm coming to a map that looks like this as a user with all these different layers, I'm wondering a lot of things like, what is this map about? Where am I on this map? Because I don't see any like physical, like I don't see my address or streets or what does it mean if I'm in the green area? Does that mean like I shouldn't put this down the drain? Like it doesn't give me like a lot of information other than like this is what the map looks like for an analyst, and we need to kind of come up with ways that like completely throw out this kind of approach and make it easier for someone as a user to understand what is this map about and what does it mean to me. Can you show the next slide? And it's not just about ArcGIS. I mean, Google Maps, you also get like this layer, this giant list of checkboxes. And there really isn't any other application on the web that is just a giant list of checkboxes. So even though we're very familiar with like turning layers on and off and like combining them and mixing them, in most cases people kind of want to see like a message. They want to know these are the layers that I should be seeing, and then anything else is just like a thing that you tag on and add on to. So it's kind of this idea that when you bring things to the web, you actually change the whole model around it. Like, because a lot of web GIS things are just the desktop model changed into a web page. But just like Blockbuster in the physical world is being replaced by Netflix in the digital world, it's not like Netflix is like just the exact same model or the exact same copy. In fact, it's a completely different concept in a lot of different ways. So this is like there's this kind of like rush to, like Netflix is kind of dealing with all these different things about like how does information produced, how do people get information, like how are people going to consume this? And they have more control over that than Blockbuster ever did. And they're kind of exploring that field over time. So I think GIS is like not 100% there yet. Like people have a lot of maps that they really like, and a lot of geospatial tools that they really like. And over time we'll get more familiar with which ones really like click with people on the web. So this is an example. Boston's bike plan for just the whole city of Boston. I actually worked on this with Jim, who now works for City of Raleigh, a couple of years ago. So here's like what the web page looks like. It's using an open source leaflet map, and we're pulling in the data from Esri's ArcGIS server. Like, this is one of the things that the city was very concerned about. Like, if we're going to make an open source map, are we going to need to like take the data out of our database and create a new database with new layers and maintenance and servers and things? And this is just like a plain web page that talks to ArcGIS server. I'll explain how it does that more later. But in terms of like design, it's still very much a map. Sorry, it's still very much a map. But all of the like layers and different like options that you have for bikes are always on. Like you can't say, oh, I only want to see protected bike lanes, or oh, I only want to see routes that are both ways. All of the layers are on all of the time. And if you want to know like what one of the colors is, you can just kind of hover over the option there. And then there are a few layers that you can toggle on and off, but I guess we didn't do enough analysis about whether people actually use them. I think it's more like the idea of even if you didn't click anything, when you first arrive here, you get an idea of, okay, this is the bike plan, and 2013 was the year that we had started it. So when you look at this bike plan, like why is someone looking at the bike plan? We said, well, basically we want to compare what we have today to what we want 5 years or 30 years from now. So the top two are the bike routes that we had in 2013, and then the right one is the 5-year plan. And this was really ambitious. Like the first time we actually loaded it and did like a little toggle, it was clear that in 5 years, Boston was going to add a lot more bike lanes. And I think actually, at first we were thinking about it as like a promotional thing, like we're going to show people just how awesome this 5-year plan is and they should support it. But also, it needs to be more about this message of this community planning effort is not like in vain, it's not like a blue sky thing. Like things are already on the march. Like we found in our data, we had bike lanes like when they were actually added. So this bottom map here is the bike lanes as they existed in 2007. So when someone looks at 2007 versus 2013, they're going to get a much better idea of how possible it is than 5 years. They're going to get all of these bike lanes built. Like it completely changes it from, oh, I don't think that's going to happen to, you know, look how far it's come so far, and then there's this next step. And any kind of like time-sensitive geodata is a complicated thing. Like you're not really sure, how does the user interact with it? How do I store that data? So fortunately, we were getting the data to us as like a GeoJSON, so we could just instantly programmatically turn. We had like one of the attributes was the date that was built, so we could programmatically turn that on and off. But if you look at the next slide, we decided to put like a timeline there, like above any of the map layers, just like the obvious timeline that you wanted to be able to look back in the past, see where you are today, and then click and drag the slider into the future. So there are only like 4 or 5 stops on it, so it could easily have been just like option buttons or something like that. But the slider is very prominent, and it's also visually rewarding. When you drag the slider, it goes from you're on the little baby bike to the training wheels to the regular bike. Like you definitely feel like, I'm glad that I moved this slider. And so it makes you kind of understand, okay, that's how it's supposed to interact with this map. And then the layers do work, but I didn't really like checkboxes, so they come in as these like little highlights, like, oh, these are the things that you're seeing, and then you can toggle on and off. And then, like I said before, if you want the really detailed information about like what is a protected bike lane anyway, you can hover over one of these colored squares, and it'll give you the full description. But if we showed the full description all the time, it's like wall of text, like you don't want that. So what is this built with? So I said before it's using Leaflet.js. Has anyone used Leaflet before? Awesome. It's just open source JavaScript library. It's used for just about anything that involves like zooming in and out, like obviously maps, but it's used now in like the Grand Theft Auto user manual. It's used in like different art museums for zooming in and out of art. We're probably going to use it in Museum of Fine Art. It's really easy to set up and clears up a lot of like GIS conventions. Like, I mean, if you have your own projections, then it's more complicated. But it basically takes out things that are very like GIS knowledge specific and makes it more like a web-friendly JavaScript library. And then right as we were writing this, Esri came out with this library, Esri Leaflet, which is just like a complete godsend for us because no one wanted to, rewrite our database, rewrite our server so that they could, just show one map. Like if we did that for every map, it would be very difficult. So we wanted to get it directly out of City's existing system. And Esri Leaflet is written by Esri. They put it on GitHub. It is open source. And it bridges this gap. I think we were using a much older version of the library. The newer one is like you go there are tons of examples. It's pretty easy. They've kind of changed up how it works. But I'm really excited with what Esri's done with that, and you don't have to feel like you're abandoning any of your existing systems. It should just kind of like So this is another project. It's called Blocky, and I wrote it with a few other people at Code for America during the 2012 fellowship. And it's actually a very simple application where you don't think of it as a mapping application at all. You get like a street view picture like this, and then you get a little toolbox on the bottom of different things you might want to improve your neighborhood: trash can, bench, bike lanes, flower pots, sculptures, and then you just click and drag them into place, and you can resize them, and it's just kind of like a little fun little widget. And people have created some. People have created some fun projects with it. These are two that were created by people who I never met. Just we saw them like when we were scanning through the logs. So this one is a really good example. There's a vacant lot somewhere that they found, and they put these little flower pots there. And I made this. They want a jungle gym and a sculpture. Like they've designed their whole park just like with Blocky. And on the right here, someone really wanted a bike lane and to make these cars unable to get through. So they created that setup. And so how is this even a geospatial application? What am I talking about? Well, when you get that street view picture, like we have the option for people to upload their own photo. But if I was like, quick, create like a community planning thing for your park that's near your house, you probably don't have like a lot of good pictures of it right now on you. And if you have to come back to this like a couple days later, you might forget about it. So we've kind of hooked it into Google Street View, where when you get there, you click a button, this pop-up comes up with the map, you search for an address, or you drop the little Street View guy in, and you're just browsing around regular Street View. And then at the end of Street View, you hit capture, and it'll capture like that exact view that you have. So both of these are coming, like the Google logos there, they come straight out of Street View. I'm not really sure if this is in the terms of service legal kind of sense, but I'm sure that they're cool with us. So, but basically Street View is like everywhere now. It used to be that like one of the cities that I was working with in 2012 had like very low resolution Street View from like 2007 with like a lot of abandoned buildings that are now like real businesses. So they hated Street View. They were like, don't ever show anyone Street View. And then like one day they redid the entire city in Street View. So it looks like they're going to keep it up to date. It looks like you get really good pictures of what the city, like as you picture it, like this is right here in Raleigh. I think it's a good like backdrop for any kind of community planning, drag and drop kind of thing. And then people can just create their own just by going to the website. One of the things that's good about this, like I say it's likable, sometimes people use the term it's like viral potential, like anyone can like get into it. This is Tim O'Reilly. Have you ever heard the term government as a platform or something like that? That's the sort of thing Tim O'Reilly says all the time. All the time. And he says that at first he didn't like Blocky, but because it's kind of a silly sort of thing. And then he read more about it and saw people's work in Atlantic Cities magazine, and really just thought it was just kind of like a fun thing that people could kind of like get into. And I think that's important. Like if your map, like I showed before, how there's the little bicycle that grew up when you moved the little slider. I mean, that's not really valuable, but it's the sort of thing that like lets people like get interested in like, oh, you know, the map is kind of fun, or they're interested in what I'm going to say or what I'm going to create. And also, it works. Like, I'm really glad that I'm here in Raleigh for this, because in September 2012, we had just launched this. We had the Atlantic City story, and then Tamara, who's really like the one who actually created this and does like a lot of illustration, said, "I got this crazy email. You're not going to believe it." And someone had actually gone on SeeClickFix for the city of Raleigh and said that they didn't have the crosswalks in their neighborhood. They would really like it. And their example of the crosswalk is they got the street view and they put this guy right where they wanted the crosswalk. It's actually an animated GIF. You should definitely try it. Like, this is come across very like waving and everything's glittering. It's funny. And according to City of Raleigh, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll go and look at it. And then they put a work order out for 5 crosswalks in that neighborhood. And that was terrifying. I just created like a little web app where there's little GIFs and stuff, and then now there's somewhere in the world there are actual like crosswalks. And there are some like Twitter conversations I've seen where people have encouraged citizens to like create them, because if you search on Twitter, you can see if people tweet them out. There aren't like it's not like a continuing process. I think it like kind of had a boom and then kind of declined, but that's just how it is with different applications. And it's still working, it's still useful, so if you want to try it out for yourselves, you should definitely. So this is made with some Node.js stuff on the server side, very simple stuff, and then Backbone.js, which was the kind of big framework thing at the time, and now I think people wouldn't really use it, so I'm not really recommending it. It's just how it was. It's like a model view controller sort of thing. And it also uses Bitly in an interesting way. And what I mean by that is we don't have a database. Like, I don't know if any of you would create a map without a database, but our application has nothing, like no backend data. We have no idea how many blockies have been created. It's just, we don't have any geospatial data of our own because we're getting it from Google. Just every time that they move things around on the map and like add features, things like that, it updates the URL in the browser. And so when they click share, it'll give them a Bitly link. And then they can share that Bitly link with people. And when we get someone arriving on that page with all these like very long URL, like there's a limit to how many things you can put in blocking because the URL would be too long. When they arrive from that URL, we just rebuild the same blocking. And we also create a GIF so people can like share the GIF version of it. Third project I want to talk about is Transit Future. For some time I lived in Chicago. It's kind of like cold and snowy there, but this is like during the polar vortex, so it was like extra cold. But during that winter, there was this plan to expand Chicago's transit system. It's very like hub and spoke right now, where there's like a center and it like builds out. And then they had this plan that was going around all the right politicians and engineers and planners, where they were going to try and like connect some of these lines to each other, like brown line to the blue line, like they're so close, right? The blue line goes to the airport, but if you're on the brown line, you have to get on a bus and wait for like an hour to get to the blue line. It's like this one little gap. So that's like one example of like an obvious thing. Like you would show it to people, and they wouldn't go like, "Oh my God, taxes." They'd be like, "Finally!" Right? There were like lots of examples like that. Finally this, finally that. But they never actually mapped it themselves. They would have all these reports and like explanations of what they were going to do, but it was very like a political hot potato. No one actually wanted to say specifically where it was going to go or what was going to be built, and they didn't want it to be like so visual. But we wanted it to be visual so that people would be able to get interested in it. It wasn't going to succeed without some popular support, and it wasn't going to get popular support if we just kind of like did some hand wavy thing. So the way this map works is you scroll down and things happen. You don't actually like get to like click and drag your way through our new map of the system. You're just continuously infinite scrolling through things, and like the map will zoom around and like kind of like Google Earth, go from one place to the next. And then you have like a slide like this, where when you arrive here, the University of Chicago area highlights, and they say, "Oh, it's going to run on existing tracks." The thing is, there would be a lot of value for people to explore the map themselves, but they would probably miss out on why these routes were being created. So we've created this in a way that as you scroll, it shows you what we want you to see. It says our message. You don't like it to like zoom in and say, "Look, it's going to go on this exact road." It's just kind of like highlighting things in turn. So it's kind of an interesting concept in that it's not a map that you interact with in a typical way. And also, as it started getting shared out to people, we actually got 15,000 shares on Facebook, and I think our traffic was like in the close to 100,000 views. A lot of people then were going to see it, like a friend posting it on Facebook or on Twitter, and they're going to click it on their phone, and then it's going to crash their phone. Like this was like tons of map layers flickering in and out, and zoom from one place to the other like Google Earth. And it's not even going to fit because there's the map and this like text area. So usually in responsive design you think, let me just like kind of compress everything so it fits on the phone. but we just completely switched it out. We said, if you're a phone, don't start the map. Instead, show these like image slides. And that actually worked really well. Like a lot of people, I think, saw it on their mobile phone and had no idea that, they were missing out, which is kind of bad. But I mean, people aren't going to, if all your website says is, come back on your desktop device, and they're like watching it, maybe while they're on the train, they're going to be like, what? They're not going to remember it when they get back. So you have to kind of like give them like the next best thing, which is to have some CSS in there, have some JavaScript in there that says, wait, I'm on a phone, let's not get too crazy with what we do. And this is made with a few different things. Code for America is a really interesting like annual budget they do each year where it transitions from one slide to the next, or like they trigger events based on your scrolling, and we totally ripped the code from them. Like just all the slides, all the ideas of the map were running. We had to customize it a lot. But basically, Code for America is churning out a lot of good apps, but also just things that are like functional, like a budget. Can also, like, if you like the way it interacts and they're open source, you can just totally take it from them, modify it yourself. CartoDB was good because we could upload a lot of map layers and request different styles at different times. So there's just one layer that's uploaded of data, and then when we focus on one area, like this, we'll highlight that one. It'll become wider than the others. And it'll load this, it'll make this area visible. And then when we look at the next one, it'll hide all of this. And instead of having multiple map tiles, like we would have with Mapbox, we just had like different settings that we set to CartoDB. And then as it got bigger, like I think it was like a few days in, my friends who recruited me for the project said, I owe Mapbox like $300 right now. And we were like, because we weren't really actually creating it for the city, we were kind of doing it as a thing, and now it's like becoming expensive. So I talked to, we talked about it for a while, and we used Heroku, which is just, you can set up servers on AWS, but it's very easy. You just kind of like push some code, you do git push, kind of like you do git push to GitHub, you just push some code up on Heroku, and it'll set up a server, and then you drag a little slider, and you have 10 servers. So you can keep delivering to people. So that was useful for our traffic issues. And then for the map, we also made it cache tiles, where like when people were going over the same area every time, so we would just cache the tiles, store them. I think that was also against the terms of service, so don't do it unless you really want to. So kind of like what I want to leave you with is that when you're creating a map, and it's completely not for analysis, not for like some scientific thing, but to communicate something to the public, is it drawn to scale? Is it looking like a map? Is it even meant to be completely literal? Like, does everything have to be exactly like it is or exactly like the plan is? And why is that? I mean, I can see a lot of cases where it has to be for political reasons or because you're literally showing them, I'm going to demolish your apartment block and replace it with a park. But in a lot of cases, there's kind of like this larger design around the map, where some of these cases, like you couldn't interact with the map, or the map was just street view, and you kind of have to look into that kind of geospatial data and what's available and what you might want to do with it, rather than just starting with a giant full screen map and checkboxes. Like some of the best geospatial data that's out there, like this is an atlas from 1854 I saw at one point. It has all the mountains of the world and all the rivers of the world, or all the big rivers of the world, like next to each other. This is like completely fundamentally geographically false. But if you've seen one of these mountains, you get kind of a better idea. Like if I know like that one, then I'm like, wow, that mountain, I thought it was really huge, but it's nothing compared to all these ones in the Himalayas. And of course, those mountains are not like super like sharp either. Like this whole thing is like based around a falsehood that they're next to each other, or that they could actually be that tall and pointy. And the rivers are completely stretched out with these little lines like that. But I feel like if you, it is more about this concept of we're going to show you something that you really just couldn't see if you had a literal map comparing them to each other, or literal pictures compared to each other. So just kind of diagrams like this I mean, these kind of design ideas have always existed, and they've always existed in cartography, like in GIS. We're just kind of adapting them for the web and trying to see what works, I think. And that's what I got. Thanks.